Yo, what's good with you? In today's video, I got the best beginner guide to scripting, for Roblox and stuff. This tutorial or guide, I guess you could say, is for really anybody, honestly. Like you just started playing Roblox and you want to get into game development, you want to do scripting, maybe you've been trying to, script and stuff and you wanted a guide, you want help or whatnot, or if you're just an intermediate and you want to make sure your skills are polished, the beginners aspects and stuff. But anyway, this video should be helpful to anyone and stuff, so let's go ahead and get straight into it. Okay, so the way it works is this. I'm going to introduce a topic to y'all. I'm going to give y'all the textbook definition, then I'm going to give y'all a simplified definition because I already know y'all probably wouldn't understand the textbook definition. Honestly, when I'm reading this, I'm like, this don't even really make that much sense. But yeah. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to cover is the 3 different types of scripts, right? But before I do that, I'm kind of assuming that everyone knows how to navigate Studio, but just in case you don't know how to navigate Studio, right? Just download Roblox Studio, right? Once you download Roblox Studio, you guys can like click new and then just click, base plate. You could just create a new base plate. I'm just gonna open up one of my own places and stuff, but you guys will click new and open up your base plate, right? Then you should have your Explorer menu down here. I mean, sorry, not down here, to the right and stuff. If you don't see the Explorer menu, then you can just click View at the top and then click Explore right here and then just enable it. And then I also want you to open the output. You would open the output by clicking View and then you would click the second icon. Like these little, I think it's like, these are about 10, 11 mini icons. You would just click the second one. Well, second going across. But yeah. Okay, so there are 3 different types of scripts, right? There is local, server, and module scripts, right? But the 2 that I'm going to really focus on is local and server scripts. You don't really have to worry about module scripts, even though I do plan to talk about them to show you guys how to use them. Really and truly, do not worry about them because it's like, that's for intermediate and advanced level scripters. No beginner should really be using module scripts. Beginners should only be using local and server scripts, but people wanted me to talk about it, so I was like, okay, I'll include it in the beginner guide. So first thing I'll go over is the local script. A local script is a script that runs its content on the client, which is the player's device, instead of the server. It is used to access client-only objects such as the player's camera. Now, I feel like that definition was pretty good compared to the other ones and stuff, but just in case you were still confused, a local script pretty much means it runs stuff that like only affects the client, which the client refers to a single player. Let me show you guys the difference, right? I'm gonna click play and I'm gonna load into the game and I'm gonna show you guys the difference. Do you guys notice how right here it says current client, right? So when you're playing the game, when you're playing like any type of game, right, and you're moving around like this, you are the client. Like what you're seeing and stuff, it's either client or server based, right? But certain things are client only, certain things are the entire server can see, right? Let me switch to the server view. I click this icon, you guys see this is the server, this is the server view, right? So there are 2 different things. Now let me show you guys the difference. Okay, so let's say this. If I press escape, the escape key, right? I bring up the Roblox default menu, right? With all the, the settings, take a screenshot, report players, whatever, the server list, all that stuff, right? Now, if I press this, the UI is going to show up on my screen, but it's not going to show up on every other player's screen. It's only going to show up on my screen. This is client side. This is local. This is something that will be done on a local script because only I, the client, an individual player, can see it, right? Now, there are events that can affect all clients, which would mean it would affect all players, but just think of it more so as like certain things affect individual players, certain things affect all the players in the server, right? And this is one of the things that is a client only thing, as only I can see this. Like if there was another player in the game, you wouldn't know that I have this menu open. Like I'd have to tell you, you wouldn't know, right? Now, other things that are client based is, I mean, there's a lot of things. If I walk around the game, obviously other players can, see me walking around. That is, server based. Right? If I type something in the chat and I say, wow, everybody that has access to the chat will see my message. But obviously, if I type something, but I don't send it, this is client. It's client only until I press enter, right? Until I send the message. When I send the message, it then is, dispersed between all the players in the server, and then it become, server-sided, right? So that's pretty much explaining the difference between client and server side. Now we'll get into the actual scripting, right? So certain things can be accessed via local scripts. And let me talk about these services over here to explain where you can put scripts. So one thing I just want to go ahead and just say right off the bat, please do not put scripts inside of parts, like anything inside of the workspace. Please do not put like scripts inside of there, right? Like just don't do that. I'm going to tell you guys where you can put scripts. Okay, so what I would personally recommend, the 3 places that I'm pretty sure you can only really put local scripts and I would only see logically why you would want to put a local script there. Or sorry, 4 actually. Um, the two most common for me is starter player scripts and starter character scripts, which is under starter player. So just click this little arrow if you don't see it, right? You could insert local scripts. If you click the plus icon, you'll see the option for a local and a server script and stuff. Now I just want to clarify something. When I say server script, I'm referring to this. You see how it just says script? It doesn't literally say server script. But yeah, when I say server script, I'm referring to a script. That's just how we differentiate between local script and server script, right? But yes, so you can, click the plus icon, insert a local script. I'd recommend either having it inside of starter character scripts, starter player scripts, either if it's going to be in starter GUI, you would need to have a UI in here, right? Which don't even really worry about that. I'm just saying, like, if you have a UI, like a frame or like a, I don't know, like an admin panel or something, you would probably have a script inside, right? And then the other place is inside of replicated first. This is for like things like loading screens and stuff, right? Since things inside of replicate first, it's the first things to load on the client side, right? So yeah, explaining the differences. So starter player name, it's a given. Starter player, these are the things that start when the player joins. So starter player, this script will be parented to the player, right? So say if there are values on the script that you don't want to change, you would leave inside a starter player. If there are values you don't care about changing, you would leave inside of the starter character. So what that essentially means is certain things like, I don't know, like a combat status system. Like if you want to know if a player is blocking, if they're attacking and stuff, you would probably put it inside a starter character because, combat has to do with the character. We're opposed to like, if you're trying to see like, okay, if a player is walking, let's give them a speed boost every 5 seconds, right? Even though that does involve the character, you more than likely probably want to do that for the player, the starter player scripts, right? But like I said, you don't really have to worry about that right now. So then moving on, we have the server scripts. A server script is a script that can access server-side objects, properties, and events, such as to award badges to players using badge servers, while local scripts on the client cannot. So the difference between local script and server scripts, you guys should pretty much understand that server scripts affect things on the server, right? Now I'm going to explain to you guys, and I'm actually going to show y'all too, like the difference between local server script, like what they can access. So as you guys can see, if I'm on the client side, right, you guys see how I can, even though I can see server storage, right? I can see server storage, I can see server script servers, right? I can see it, but I can't see the contents inside of it. If I switch to the server side, you guys see how there's now an arrow and there's actually a script in here now. This is a Roblox default script, by the way. But yeah, you guys see how I can see it on the server side, but if I switch, I can't see it on the client side. That's because the client side, the individual player only has access to certain things, the workspace, players, actually, yeah, pretty much everything. I believe pretty much everything except the except server storage and server script service. These are the most secure things inside of the Explorer tab. Hence why you would want to keep the important stuff, important scripts in the server script service, and the important, items, instances and stuff inside of server storage. Because if I were to insert, say, a folder in server storage, right, I can't access it. That's why if you're ever watching a video that talks about the best ways to deal with exploiters or prevent exploiters from taking advantage of your game, you would want to handle stuff on the server side and keep all your important like weapons and abilities and stuff, I guess assets per se, inside of server storage, because hackers and exploiters cannot access that, to my knowledge, I should say. But yeah, they can't access that. That's just the most secure place to put them, right? So that's the difference between server scripts and local scripts. Local scripts can only access certain things on the client side, which you will need to do both. There will be times where you need to access things that are only available on the client side, and then there will be times where you need to access things on the server side. An example would be for, let's say, the client side, right? So the example which I mentioned actually about the player's camera. So you cannot access a player's camera on a server script. The reason for this is that server scripts run on the server, right? So the server doesn't have a camera. Like, if you guys understand what I'm saying, each individual player has a camera, but you have to access that by going on the client side. You can access the camera, so you can see where the camera's position is, how far it's turned to the left, how far it's turned to the right, etc., right? There are certain things. Other things, would be like UI related stuff, like disabling players UI. That could also be done. That also has to be done locally. Disabling players UI, like if you wanted to disable the default Roblox menu, or I don't know. Actually, sorry, you can't disable that. If you wanted to disable like reset character, the reset character button, you could do that, right? Now for server scripts, it's pretty simple, right? For things like this, you would probably want to access things inside of server storage. Say if you have a combat script, right, and a player is about to use like a flame attack, yeah, like a fire-based attack, right? You're gonna have your assets in here, like the fireball VFX effects and stuff. You're going to want to access it inside of server storage. You would only be able to do that via a server script. So that's the difference between the two of them and why you'd want to access them, right? Now for module scripts, I didn't even, yeah, I've read over the definition in the textbook, or I keep saying the textbook, but like I'm speaking like the virtual, but which I will explain to y'all later in the video. But yeah, I read it and the definition is horrible in my opinion. I'm reading it and I'm just like, I don't even understand this myself, even though I know how to use module scripts, but okay. So a brief overview of module scripts. As I said, I don't want you guys to use them at all. I just am only talking about it because people ask me to. So module scripts work similar to server scripts, right? They can access things on the server side. They cannot access things on the client side, right? I just want to make that clear. They cannot access things on the client side. So think of module scripts as similar to server scripts, right? So if I insert a module script, here's what it looks like. It's purple and it literally says module script, right? Now, these are much more confusing to use and stuff, right? I probably will come back to this and stuff, but I do have a video that talks about module scripts. If you're interested to know about module scripts, I have a video that talks about. I really don't want to get into like the usage of it because it's like this isn't really important for a beginner. This is more so for an intermediate. But I do have a video if you are interested to know how module scripts work though. So okay, now we're gonna get into the next category, variables, which means we're now actually gonna get to some actual scripting, right? So variables. A variable is a name that holds a value. Variables values can be numbers, strings, booleans, data types, and more. So honestly, again, I like their definition. The definitions, the first couple definitions I'm using are actually pretty good. It's just the later ones where they're not as clear stuff, right? But yeah, so I'm gonna explain each thing to you guys. I'm explaining numbers, strings, booleans, data types, and all that stuff, right? So a variable. Let me show you guys how to first create a variable. So I'm gonna delete print hello world, right? So as you guys heard me say, a variable is a name that holds a value. The way we initialize or create a variable is we have to open a script. So just insert a local script into starter player scripts, right? Insert a local script, open it up, delete the print hello world, right? And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna type local. Here's how we initialize or create a variable. Then you want to put a space, right? Because we're just letting the script know, okay, this is a variable. Then we're going to actually give it a name. So for the name of our variable, I don't know. I don't want to call it variable because then it'd be like the variable's name is variable. Let's call it var. Yeah, var for short. Okay. So this is our first variable, right? For short, it's var. So the name of the variable is var, right? But we need to assign it a value because right now it's not equal to anything. So as I had mentioned, variables values can be numbers, strings, booleans, data types, and more. Now I'm going to explain what each one of those mean. Okay, so to assign it a value, you would click the equal sign, then another space, and then you would actually assign the value. Here's where you actually input the information for, okay, this is the value. So first things first, numbers, that's pretty self-explanatory. For numbers, 1, 12, 123, it doesn't matter. 34, right? There can't be any spaces unless it's a text. Like you can't do like 34 like this. It has to be, if it's numbers, it has to be all one thing. So 33, whatever, 10, right? Boom. So that's just numbers. So to explain this, right, we have ourselves a variable. Congrats, you've created your first variable. The name of the variable is var, right? And the value of the variable is 10, right? That's numbers. Now for strings. Strings is pretty much any type of text. Now, I just want to clarify something because I don't know if people get confused about this, but I just want to just set the record straight just in case. When I say text, I'm not referring to this. Like, I know like what we're typing, we're typing on a keyboard and this is text. Now, this is text on a script. I'm actually referring to strings, right? That's why it's called strings and not text, because strings is actual like inputted textual information, I guess. Now, the way you'll know it's a string is you have to use quotation marks. Then you input your text. You can't say say if you wanted var to be equal to the word wow, you can't just put wow. Instead, it's going to give you a syntax error because it's not how things work. You have to use quotation marks and then type wow. Here's how you create let's go. Here's how you create a string. That's how you create a string, right? Now, say if you wanted to separate strings, right? Like say if you wanted to call on like other pieces of information, you can separate them by doing dot dot dot. Then you could throw in another quotation marks, which would space it would space them out, right? And then you could keep going like that. You can't do like space that or that. You can't do that. You'd have to put a dot dot dot. But yeah, so that's strings, simple text inside of quotation marks, right? Then we have booleans. Booleans is 50-50. It's either true or false, right? It's true or false. So false or true. That's simply what a boolean is, right? It's okay. True, yes. False, no. It's that simple, really, right? An example I guess would be like, say if you wanted to see if like there were players in the game, right? You would have a variable that checks if whether or not a player has joined. Upon the first player joining, you would see if the value is set to false. If it's set to false, you would set it to true. That's just an example. Then moving on, we have data types. Now, data types is really, honestly, it's the stuff I covered, really, strings, numbers, boolean, and stuff, because I don't really want to go into the other stuff because that might complicate things. But really and truly, for variables, what you're really just going to be setting it to is strings, numbers, and booleans and stuff, and putting like other information from like functions and stuff will be covered later on in the video, and that really is later down the line for y'all. But yeah, so that's variables, right? So we've created our first variable. I'm gonna set it back to 10. I'm gonna just set it back to 10 what we had before, right? And now I'm gonna go over wait / task.wait. So first things first, I do want to clarify, do not use this. Do not use waits. Now I know in my videos, even in the last couple of months, I've used wait, but I've started using task.wait. Wait is deprecated. If you don't know what that means, deprecated pretty much means it's like, it's no longer going, like it's not going to be used in the near future. Like Roblox does not recommend you use it because they have a better way of doing something, which means more than likely there are going to be issues with using it, or it'll just be completely removed or unusable in the near future, right? So do not use wait. Simply just do task.wait, right? So this is pretty self-explanatory, pretty simple, right? Task.wait pauses the script until the given duration has concluded. So if you want to pause the script, like if you wanted to give like a cooldown or something, you could just use a task.wait. So say if I wanted to, I don't know, if I wanted to increase the variable, right? If I wanted to increase the variable, because you guys see how the value is set to 10. Let's say if I wanted to increase it to 20. But I wanted to like wait about 5 seconds from after the game starts. I could put 5, just so know the duration, as it says, the amount of time is in seconds. So yeah, if you want to go minutes, then you'd have to convert that, But yeah, so I would wait task.wait 5 seconds, then I would say variable plus equal 10, right? And stuff. So that's wait. Wait, very useful, or sorry, task.wait, very useful. You're gonna be using it and stuff. Over time, you'll learn how to properly utilize it because while it is self-explanatory how to use, it's very simple. You have to learn how to integrate it into code to where it doesn't like slow down the server. It doesn't cause delays and things and issues and stuff, guys. Issues are prone to happen with using too many task.waits, especially in certain key areas and stuff. So you knowing how to utilize it just comes with, the more you practice and the more experience you get, right? Moving on, we have if, else, and else if statements, right? So I can very much so tell, right? I can very much so tell that a lot of people do not understand how these work because I've helped a lot of people and I've seen just a lot of people ask me for help with this stuff for my videos where they didn't understand how to add else or else if statements to things. Okay, so I'm gonna give you the definition. It's like I said, the definitions start to get worse. This is not the best, but I'm gonna give it to y'all. Conditional statements, which is referring to if/else/else if statements, are lines of code that only run if certain conditions are true. Which, that's not that bad though, right? One type of conditional statement is an if-then statement. Control structures can have more than one condition. The keywords else and else if can create additional scenarios for what should happen under several conditions. Okay, now I feel like that wasn't that bad, but it might have been bad. It's cool if it was though. I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys, right? We're gonna get into some actual scripting here. So if statements, again, definitely something very essential that you will need to know. So if, simply type if, right? Lowercase I, you can't do it in uppercase I, right? So if, right? And then when it says if then, you would do if then, but like you would have to put, your condition in between the if and the then. So I'm gonna show you guys an example, right? So there's only 2 ways if statements can work. either the information is correct and the rest of the code will proceed, or the information is not, it doesn't match up, so it will not proceed. So an example of it proceeding is, let's say if var our variable, right, is equal to, now to let y'all know, with if statements you have to use two equal signs, right? I just want to clarify something. Now if you're setting a value, you want to use one equal sign. Like if you want to say var is, if you want to set it to 5, you would say var is equal to 5. If you're setting it, one equal sign. But if you're checking it, two equal signs, right? But yeah, so let's say if var is equal to 10, right? If var is equal to 10, right? I know I didn't cover printing yet, but just bear with me and stuff. I probably honestly should have covered, printing, but we can really just, cover it. Let's cover it right now, actually. Let's cover it right now. And then I'll go over debugging later. Okay, so with printing, I'm pretty sure you guys understand how printing works. You type the word print, you put parentheses, and then what you put in here is what will be displayed in the output. Hence the point of us opening the output, right? So it works same thing with variable values. You can, input strings, numbers, booleans, right? So let's say this. If var, our variable, is equal, if its value is equal to 10, then we're going to put quotation marks, because this is how we create a string. You guys see how it says string, right? Then let's say the value is equal to 10, right? That's simple. Then if I click play, let's click play. Oh, sorry, we didn't have to click play. We could just click run. But yeah, so as you guys can see, the value is equal to 10. And notice how it says, how it's saying client, right? Because this is being printed from a local script. If we were printing this on a server script, client would instead be server, right? So moving on, we will go back here, right? I'm now going to show you guys what would happen if it was not equal to 10. So if it's not equal to 10, let's change this to 8, right? We don't actually have to click play each time. We can actually do a faster option, which is run. Run just means the server will run and our player won't actually load. So if we click run, nothing will print in the output because the variable's value is not equal to 8, it's equal to 10, so nothing will happen, right? But now let's say if we wanted something to happen if the value did not equal to 8, right? We would simply enter, right? We would do an else statement. Now this means that things are going one of two ways, right? If this condition is equal to this, like if this condition is met, then this will happen, right? If this condition, let me just do this like this. If the condition is met here, this will happen. If this condition is not met, then it'll say, okay, regardless of what it is, this is going to happen. That's the point of else. It doesn't matter what it is. If this is not, does not work out, then it's going to go straight to this, right? So then we'll say print quotation marks, the, let's say the value is not equal to 8. Right? Then if I press run, right, it's okay. If it, sorry. Okay, sorry. No, we do have to click play. Sorry. I forgot. This is a local script inside of a starter player script. The script would only run if our player actually joined the game and stuff. It'd be different if it was a server script. My bad, guys. But anyway, as you guys can see, value is not equal to 8, right? Stuff. That's what I mean. Now, let's say if you wanted to check for specifics, right? Let's say if you wanted a condition to happen if it was equal to something. That's the point of else if. Else if is very specific. Now, you can use else statements, but I personally would recommend you use else if because you want specific results. So let's say if we wanted something to happen if the value is equal to 9, if it's equal to 10. So let's say instead of else, we do else if. Now, let me just say, y'all can't do else and then go do else if. Like, no, it's either else if. It's either if and else or if and else if, right? So you can do else if, right? And then you're going to say, let's say var, the variable's value is equal to 9, enter, right? Then we would say, we could change this to say the value is equal to 9. And by the way, you can add as many else if statements as you want, right? It can be more than 2, more than 1. Right? We would just do the same thing. We would say else if var is equal to 10, enter. Then we would say print the value is equal to 10, right? And then changes to 8, right? So based on what the value, what the value of the variable is what's going to be printed into the output. If I click play, since our value is equal to 10, it's going to say the value is equal to 10, right? It's pretty simple. So I hope that was, conditional statements, weren't that bad. That's if and else if statements and stuff. And yeah, that's pretty simple. So yeah, I guess I'll also cover booleans and strings too, just to show you guys. So let's change our variable's value. Let's change it to a boolean. Let's do boolean first, then we'll do strings. Okay. So let's set the value of the variable equal to false. So we only need one else if statement, and the reason for this is because, remember guys, booleans can only be one of two things, true or false. The boolean's value can only be true or false, one of two things, right? Now a number in a string could be infinite possibilities, but yeah, so the value and stuff. So if we left things alone as they are, nothing would print because we have numbers here while the value is a whole boolean, so nothing would happen. So let's say if variable is equal to false, then the value is equal to false. If variable is equal to true, then the value is equal to true, right? Is equal to true, right? So if I click play, it's going to say the value is equal to false because that's what it is. If I change the value, if I set this to true, then this statement will print, right? That's simple. And honestly, booleans is probably easier. It's probably easier to understand than numbers and strings. But yeah, so moving to strings, we're gonna do it like this. Let's go ahead and let's say, I don't know, cool. Let's set our variable's value equal to cool. This is our string, cool, right? So if variable is equal to, let's say, cool, right? If the value of the variable is equal to cool, then it'll print the value is equal to cool. Now I want to clarify something. Scripting, right, the way Lua works, the coding language for Roblox, it's very specific. Like, it's case sensitive. You cannot, like for example, if you want this to match this, you cannot put lowercase c and then put cool. It's not going to recognize that. They have to match, like this spacing, everything. If you put a space in between, this will not match. It has to match the spacing, the capitalization. Everything has to match. You could even leave it like this and then put a space at the end or a space at the beginning. It still would not match. It has to match exactly as it is, right? So if variable is equal to cool, then it'll print the value is, equal to cool. Then if it's equal to not cool, then we say the value is, not equal to cool. We would just put that, right? I think we've covered if, else, and else if conditional statements, I think you guys understand them. So now moving on to comments. Literally going to spend like 2 minutes on this. This is very simple. So a comment is a piece of text that the Lua parser doesn't pay attention to when running the code. Pretty much just means comments is, as the name implies, you pretty much leave comments on the script for like either yourself, for like if you want to come back to something, you're like, okay, I don't really remember how this works, or I may not remember how this works, so let me leave a comment on how this works. Or if you're trying to, publish something like into the toolbox for other players to use, or just generally, distributing something to other players, you're like, okay, here's like a little guide on how everything works. The way you create a comment, right? Let's go ahead and just clear all this out, right? So the way comments work is you just do 2 slashes, right? Or 2 dashes, whatever you want to say. That's the code, so just ignore that. But yeah, so you would do 2 slashes, then let's say this is a comment, right? You could type whatever you want, you could put numbers, whatever. So this is a comment. It will not run anything on the script, right? Like it won't run anything, like this won't be run. Like even if I did local var is equal to 10, it's not a variable since it's between like the lines and stuff. Now if I go to the next line, we're back to regular, typing and stuff. Hence why you guys see how it's a red line, because it's a syntax error, right? Now, the other way to do it, where like if you want to have multiple, like a multi-line comment, I believe, I'm not gonna lie, I don't remember, I don't use comments that much, but I think it's like 2 special brackets, and then yes, I think it's something like that, and then yeah, okay, yeah, there we go. So yeah, you would just do 2, regular brackets, then right brackets, and yeah, there you go, and that's just comments and stuff. But the use for that is really only if like you're planning to distribute something, or if you just want to remember how to do something and stuff. Right, now moving on to something you guys are probably going to enjoy, functions, right? I think you guys are gonna enjoy functions. Now, I want to move to a server script to handle our functions. Okay. So we're gonna insert a server script into server script service. Click the plus icon, insert our script, right? Delete our print hello world, right? Now getting into functions. Functions are blocks of code that you can execute multiple times on command. You can also connect them to events or assign them as callbacks. There are a lot of things you can do with functions. Functions are essential. If you don't really understand what functions are, let's say this. When you join the game, right? Let's say you join a game. I don't know. Let's say you join a Battlegrounds game, right? Like the strongest Battlegrounds. When you join the Battlegrounds game, you guys know how in the leaderboard in the top right, it says the amount of players, the amount of kills a player has, each individual player and stuff. Now, I'm pretty sure you know that's because your data is being saved when you leave or periodically, however they choose to do it, right? So there is a function that when you join the game, it's going to load your data. So then you see how many kills you have. Well, everybody will see, see how many kills you have, right? That is an example of a function. There are tons of functions out there. There are built-in functions. You can create functions. I'm gonna go over a built-in function, then show you guys how to create your own function, right? There's two ways to set up functions. You can go the built-in function route, which is just accessing it like this. Let's see if I wanted to function for when a player joins the game. I would say game.players.player added, right? You guys see this little lightning symbol? This is when you see the signal, this is how you know you're referencing a function. This is a function, right? So that's just how you know. So player added, player removing. This is when a player joins the game. This is when a player leaves the game, right? So let's create a function for when the player joins the game. So player added, then you put a colon, then you would connect. Remember I said connect. So connect, then you would throw your function, right? And then you guys see how we're kind of honestly following the blueprint up here. You guys see func, which is short for function, then our player. Then you would put parentheses, right? Enter, right? Because a function has to end in a built-in function has to end in this. It has to end within the word end with a right parenthesis, right? Now in here is where you would input information that the function would return, right? So in the player added function, as you guys could probably guess, the information it will return is the instance of the player who joined the game, right? So we've just created our first function. So let's say if every time the player joined the game, I wanted to print the player's name, I would say print player.name, right? So if I join the game, right, as soon as my player joined the game, boom, there we go. You guys notice how it says server now, and it print my player's name, boom, right? That's a function, right? Very essential, very useful, right? Now this is just accessing a built-in function, right? There's actually two ways you can do this. You have the method we just did, and you can also do it like this. You can create a local function, right? Now a local function they're functions that are accessible only within the scope in which they are defined and cannot be called from outside that scope. So I'm kind of tie this into this, right? So the way you can you can call on built-in functions is the first way I showed you, and another way is doing it like this. You can do function, and let's name it. Let's say you'd give it a name. You'd say player joined, parenthesis, right? And then you could put PLR, which is short for the player, right? Then enter, right? You guys notice how with this function it's end because this is a function. You could call it a custom function, right? Or just a function, right? What we did the first time was a built-in function because it was something that was pre-programmed or built in by Roblox, right? This is something we're creating ourselves. So the way you can do it is you can connect it like this. You can say game.players.player added, and instead of saying connect, instead of saying connect in the word function, you would actually get the function. Because you guys remember how we put the word function here because we were actively creating the function, but we already have the function. There's no need to create a function. We just need to connect it. So what we put here is simply the name of the function. We just got to reference it. So player joined, enter, right? And then boom. Now if we put print PLR.name, right? Now, I don't know if you guys notice. You guys notice that it's not automatically it's not automatically like finishing the auto-correcting the thing, right? Like it's not finishing the rest of the text for us. That is because it's not built in. You're creating your own custom function. This is why I personally do not recommend doing functions like this unless it's like a custom function, like a combat function or something like that. But like for things that are built in, like when a player joins the game, a player leaves, use the built-in function. It's easier and it's better, right? So now if I click play, the same thing will happen. My name is in the output, right? Boom. So Now I've showed you guys the two ways to create functions. Let me just repeat once more. I prefer and would recommend you do the first way. If you watch any of my other videos, you guys would see that I always do the first way and stuff, except for like custom functions. Now, to get into local functions, right? You can call functions at any point, right? You guys see how we set up this function. So depending on the type of function, which means you can call it. Now, you guys remember how I mentioned in the beginning of the video that local scripts keyword local, right? That means it's localized. That's what it's short for, right? So this function player join, I can call this function anywhere on the script, right? Like if I wanted to go after, like if I wanted to go way after and I say player join. Oh, here's how you call a function, by the way. Sorry, I didn't know if I made that clear, but yeah, here's how you would call a function, right? Because this function will only run once, right? Or sorry, it won't only run once. Sorry. Okay. Depending on how you connect the function will depend on how many times it runs. Since we connected this to whenever a player is in the game, this function will only run whenever a player joins the game, right? That's the only way. But by me also calling it here, it would also call it, right? Now, if this was another function for like, I don't know, if you just wanted to periodically check how many players in the server every like 30 seconds, then you would call it like this, right? Now, let's change this, right? Let's change this. You don't need that, right? So we don't need this. Let's just put in here, you're gonna put quotation marks, you're gonna say function has been called. I'm gonna show you guys just how to call a function, right? So it's just as I mentioned, you would just call it like this, and then it would print the function has been called, right? Now, to show you guys the difference between a local function and a regular function, right? So if you notice, I can go above the function, right? Because this is outside of the scope, and I can say player join. I can still call it, right? Now, if I were to turn this into a local function, put a space, and put local, notice, like, watch this. I cannot call the function. You guys see how it's not giving me the option to. I can't, even if I, fully typed it myself, player joined and stuff, just nothing. And then it's going to give me a syntax error. Why? Because it's unknown. It's an unknown global, right? That's the thing. When it's localized, when it's local, it's localized. It's like only a certain area, like this. I can call it down here, which pretty much means you should only be using local functions for, localized things you don't need to call, before that function and stuff, right? But really, I would just recommend just going with functions. You're just going with, just regular functions and stuff, right? But yeah, so even though the name of the function is player join, let's just rename it to our function, right? So if I wanted to call a function, right? Since this is our custom function that's not built in, this function will only run once, and that's when the server loads up. It'll say our function has been called, right? Now, I will show you guys how to, call stuff like, repeatedly, but like while loops and stuff, while loops and things of that nature, right? So yeah, an example of, I guess, just showing you guys more built-in stuff is this. I showed you guys, when a player joins and leaves the game. Let me show you guys character stuff. So let me add onto a function. So let's create our function that we first created. Game.players.player added, connect function, in parentheses, put PLR, which is short for our player, then enter, right? Now we could expand off this. We can say player.character added, right? Boom, character added. This is another function. As you guys can see, it's fired when a player's character spawns or respawns, right? So character added, connect function. You want to pay attention to the text here because it's kind of giving you a set of instructions in a sense, right? So you would put the player's, you put the word character because this is the player's character, right? So I don't know. Let's say if every time the player character was added, you wanted to see where the character's position was. You could say print character dot humanoid root part dot position, right? Because humanoid root part is a part of the character. So if I click play, right? You guys see how it has my character's position. It's just gonna keep giving those same numbers since this is a spawn point, and I'm gonna keep spawning here. If I reset my character, you guys see how the function was called again, right? If I just keep walking around, it's not gonna be called. Every time I die and respawn, it's gonna call this function. So yeah, that's just how you simply just add on the functions and whatnot. Now, if you wanted to stop a function from being called until it's repeated again, say if you only wanted this to run one time, when the player joined the game and stuff, you could put a break right here, right? Or I think it's like that. Or wait. Now, actually, no. You know what? Never mind. Let me not even get to that. Let me not even get to that because I don't want to confuse people. I don't want to confuse myself. So let's ignore that. Now moving on to something that a lot of people are confused the hell out of me when I first started: remote events. I feel like you guys have heard about these and stuff. If you've been trying to script for a minute, you probably have heard about it and stuff. Yes, remote events. They're essential. You cannot avoid them. You need them. It's like oxygen. You need it, right? Remote events. The remote event object enables asynchronous communication in one direction across the client to server boundary without waiting for a response. This communication can originate from a client and be sent to the server, from the server to a particular client, or from the server to all connected clients. Now, you're probably confused with this shit. It's okay. I'm going to explain each one of those three mini definitions and explain what it means. So, remote event can work one of three ways, right? As I mentioned. So, first things first, let's create a remote event, right? So as you guys can see, we have replicated storage right here. You can put a remote event everywhere. Everywhere, anywhere. You can really put a remote event anywhere, but I would recommend putting them inside a replicated storage. That's really where most people put their remote events. So if we click this plus icon, we're going to insert a remote event, not a remote function, a remote event, right? And then let's give it a name. Or you know what? Better yet, let's just leave it as remote event. But if you wanted to give it a name, you could say if you want an event to handle your combat, you would say combat event. You would just change this to combat event. But for the sake of the video, I'm just going to leave it as, did not mean that. I'm just leave it as remote event, right? So we need to, if we want to access our remote event, we could access it like just while we're typing and stuff, but let's create a variable, right? Let's be civilized. Let's create a variable for our remote event. So you guys remember how we create variables? We type the word local, put a space, and then we need to give it a name. So remote events, let's stay consistent, right? Another space, equal space, let's assign it a value. So the way we access it, right? So if we're trying to access something, right? So all of these services they're parented to the game. So we would start off with game, right? Then we would simply just go dot replicated storage, because that is, that's its parent. That's where it's parented to, the replicated storage. So replicated storage, another dot, find the remote event, enter, boom, right? And then that's how we would access it. Now, in an actual game where you have probably like, 10 to 15 remote events, you more than likely would want to do it like this. You'd want to do wait for child, which pretty much means it'll wait for it. It'll wait for, like, the script won't run until it has this remote event, or it has this instance, I should say. And then boom. But we don't have to worry about that, as we only have one in this case. So yeah, we're just gonna stick to it like that, right? So we created a variable for our remote event. Now I'm gonna give you guys an explanation for the three different types. Okay, the first type that the definition mentioned, this communication can originate from a client and be sent to the server. What that pretty much means is this: we're going to need two scripts for this, right? So you're gonna want to insert a local script into these starter player scripts, right? Now, I will admit, remote events is kind of an intermediate level topic. A lot of people wanted me to talk about them. I'm like, you know what? Maybe if I introduce early on, maybe people can understand. So I'm like, okay, right? So I hope you guys will be able to understand. I think you guys can. Okay. So there are three ways to communicate between the server and the client via remote events, right? The first way is sending information from the client to the server, which means, remember, the client equals a local, equals, the local side, the player. So the one way is sending information from this local script to the server script, right? That's one way. The second way is from the server to a particular client, right? Now I'm gonna actually type this out to show you guys. Okay, so you guys see how we have the remote event. We created a variable on the server script. Well, we also want to do the same on the local script too, because we need it on both scripts if we want to be able to access it, right? Like, just to clarify this too, I highly doubt anyone thought this, but just in case, you cannot access like a variable right here on another script. Like, you'd have to send it over in between scripts, or send it somewhere to where that script could access it, if that makes sense, right? Like, I can't just, say remote event and access it. No, that's not how it works. You'd have to create your own variables on each individual script, right? So let's do the same thing. Local remote event is equal to game.replicated storage.remote event. Now remember, replicated storage, certain things can be accessed by both the client and the server side, both local and server scripts. Some things can only be accessed by the server scripts. Server script service and server storage can only be accessed by server scripts. However, replicated storage, hence the name replicated, because it's replicated to both client players and the server, right? So anything inside replicated storage can be accessed by both players and the server, hence why we put their remote event there. So yeah, we have their remote event variable on both scripts, right? and then we can actually get into it. So remember the first definition I mentioned, client and be sent to the server. This pretty much means we're going to fire their mode event from the local script and then send it over to the server script. Now you'd want to do it. Now you want this in, I guess, an example of usage. It's like, dang, I'm trying to think of this stuff off the top of my head is kind of hard. Like I know I've done it plenty of times. Oh, okay, I know. Okay, so say if you're making keybinds for a game, right? Say if you guys know when you're playing a game in some RPG like games, if you press the M key, it'll show you like a menu and stuff. Like, you can see your stats, settings, whatnot, right? And stuff. So there's a function on a local script that is waiting for when a player touches the M key, and then it'll trigger the remote event to trigger the remote. Oh, sorry, actually, hold on. Sorry. Because that's not, that's a bad example. That's a bad example. Let me see. Okay, actually, yeah, better example. Okay. M1s. You guys know when you're playing battleground games and stuff, right? Or really just any type of combat game, right? You left click your mouse, right? And you try to throw a punch, you swing a sword, whatnot, right? Now that is being done by client to server replication, which means it's partially being done via the local script and also partially being done on the server script, right? So let's just say I'm not going to create the function because I don't want to get into making keybinds because I don't want to confuse people. If you want to see how to do that, I have a video on that stuff, right? But yeah, so let's just imagine, right, for a second that we had a function that that like it's triggered whenever I left click my mouse, right? Inside of that function, we would say remote events, right? Here's how you use remote events. You would say, put a colon. There are three options. You have fire server, fire client. Oh, well, sorry. Fire server and on client. These are only options on the local script, right? I just want to make that clear. These are your only options. Fire server and on client event, right? Now, the difference between the two is this. Fire server, I think it's pretty simple. Like, you're simply sending the information from the local script to the server script. On client means you're waiting to receive the information from the server script, right? Local scripts can only fire to the server script, and server scripts can only fire to local scripts. It's not like local script can fire to other local scripts. That's not how that works. And the vice versa applies to server scripts with server scripts, right? So let me show you guys an actual example. Okay, so we have a local script inside of starter player scripts. Let's say whenever like when my player joins the game and whatnot, I fire the fire server, right? Now the way this works is you would fire their remote event, right? You would say fire server. Then you would need to wait to receive the information on the server script. You would need to set this up. So remote events. Now the options you can do here is colon fire client or fire all clients. I will talk about these. I'll go into detail about them. On server event, again, I will go into detail about them. But for now, we're just going to pay attention. We're just going to set this example up. So we're going to set up on server event, which means once this remote event has been fired from the local script onto the server script, it's waiting to receive this, right? So on server event, then connect function. We're setting up a built-in function, right? Delete, enter. So when you fire remote events from the local script to the server script, it automatically sends the player over. So you can just automatically put the PLR, which is short for player. It's going to automatically fire over the player, send over the player's instance, right? Now, if you don't know what that means when I say the player's instance, let me show you. So if I click play, right, I'm gonna show you guys. When I say sending over my player, I'm talking about this. If I open up players, this is what I'm sending over, right? My player in the players tab. I'm where we access our backpack, our UI, all that stuff. I'm not referring to this. This is our character, just in case people were confused. In the workspace, that is your character. This is our player, right? But yeah. So once the remote event has been called, we're going to say print quotation marks the remote event has been received. Or I guess the remote event has been let's see this. Let's do this. The remote event has been received, and let's print here too. We're gonna put a print after this. We're gonna say print quotation marks. Let's say the remote event has been fired. Just gonna run our checks, right? So if I click play, since I joined the game, and when I'm a player load, it's gonna say the remote event has been fired. Did you guys notice the delay? Because it's it's a delay because it's like it's kind of like firing a like a missile into space, but a lot faster, obviously, right? It's a little delay, right? So it fires the remote event and then it sends it over to the server script to be received. That's one way. That's local script to server script or client to server, right? Then there's the second way. this is the second one, which is from the server to a particular client, right? So moving on, we have the, let's say this, right? Let's say I wanted I'm gonna delete this, right? Let's say if I wanted to set up a function for when a player joins the game, right? I'm gonna say we're gonna set up the same function from before, game.players.player added connect function, in parentheses, put plog, which is for player, insert. Whenever a player joins the game, let's do this. We're going to say remote event. You're going to say fire clients, right? Now, the difference between fire client and fire all clients means, I feel like y'all can understand that, but fire client, singular. Fire all client, plural. Fire client means one individual client, one player. Remember, client is equal to player, right? Or, well, when we say client, we're pretty much referring to the player's device, but just think of it as player, right? So, let's say this. If a player joins the game and I wanted to trigger like a daily rewards thing, I would only want that individual player to see it. So I would say fire clients, not fire all clients. Now say if I wanted to display that like a player joined the game and I wanted to show all players that so and so has arrived, then I would instead do fire all clients, right? Fire all clients, right? But first example, we'll do fire client, the singular version. So when you do fire client, you have to specify which client you're trying to fire the remote event to. So I'm gonna have to specify my player's instance. Not, you don't put username, you put the instance of the player, which is our player. Remember, that's what's inside of players. I showed you guys this, right? So boom. So once the player joins the game, I'm going to fire the remote event. This is firing from the server script to the local script. So now let's set it up on the local script so that we can receive the information similar to what we did on the server script. I'm going to say remote event dot on client event connect function in parentheses. You're going to put, actually nothing yet. I'm going to show you guys, I'm going to give you guys an example of that after. So enter, and then you would just say print remote event has been received. Remote event has been received. This is similar to what we did the first time, right? And then print quotation marks, the remote event has been fired, right? Now if we go ahead and click play, once my player joins the game, you'll see the remote event has been fired, a little delay, remote event has been received. Boom, right? Now that's server to individual client. Now if I change this to fire all clients, literally nothing is going to change. It's going to fire to every player in the server and stuff. As I said, you want to use either fire client or fire all clients based on whatever it is you're trying to do. It completely depends on whatever it is you're trying to do in that situation and stuff, right? The usage is, that's really the only difference, the usage. Aside from that, pretty much the same, right? And then the last one is from the server to all connected clients, which is what I just showed you guys how to do. One last thing I want to show you guys how to do is sending over information and stuff. Because if you watch my other videos, you'll see that I send over information. So let's say if when a player joins the game, right? By the way, you can send over information from the server to the client as well as the client to the server. So it goes both ways. So let's say if I wanted to send over, okay, let's change this to fire just a singular client, right? Let's say this, right? If I wanted to send over the player's username, right? So for fire client, we have to specify which player we want to send it to, right? Now to separate this, we would put a comma, and then you would see how it says any. You would put the rest of your information here. These are going to be, I'm going to refer to these as arguments. It's not a literal argument. It's just pieces of information that you're sending over. So I'm gonna put quotation, or sorry, not quotation marks. I'm gonna put let's say player.name. So I'm gonna send over my name, right? You can send over multiple pieces, as much pieces of information as you want. You can just send comma wow. Like if you want to send over a string, the word wow, right? I'm gonna leave the print, and then here's how I'm should get set it up so where you can receive it, right? So now since we're firing it, we're sending over the player's name and wow. So first things first, we have one argument. This is one argument. This is a second argument. So we need to set it up. For short, we're going to refer to them as args. So arg, right? So arg1, comma arg2, space them out. That's how you separate them, right? So say if I want to print remote event has been received, and then I also want to print, remember put a comma to separate things. You want to also print the argument information. You would say arg1 and comma arg2. Now, if you noticed the reason why it says any, that is because we don't know what the information is, or the script doesn't know what it is. We know, but the script doesn't because it's not built in. We know what it is because we just typed it, right? So let me go ahead and click play, right? You guys see the remote event has been fired, remote event has been received, spy J19, wow. It's printing my player's username and the word wow. We sent over information. Now the same thing, literally the same thing, you just do the same thing on the client side. Now I'm gonna give you guys a prime example of something I would use in a game. I'm not gonna set up a whole function, but just more so how I would send over information. Here's how I personally would recommend you do it. Okay. So let's say let's just send it over one time. Let's do it like this, right? So if I was doing M1s, right, I would say remote event fire server quotation marks. You want to give the okay. So I don't want to confuse people. This is a remote event. This is our remote event. But what we're gonna send over is individual events, right? This is gonna be the name of an event. You'd put in string, like for our string, you put the name of the event. So say if this is an M1, we would put combat. That would be the name of the event. Then you would separate it. Then you would say quotation marks in the type of combat. So let's say M1, because you could do, it could be M1, M2, blocking, I don't know, skills, abilities, whatever, right? So we're sending this piece of information over, right? Let's utilize what we've learned. So let's delete this function and set up a new one. We're going to say remote event dot on server event connect function. Remember, in parentheses, it automatically sends over the player. So we're just going to put PLR short for the player, comma. Then we need to create variables for sorry, not variable. Well, yeah, technically are variables for information, right? That we're sending over. So instead of putting arg, we're going to put event type or event name, whatever you want to call it, and then arg1. Here's how you would know the event and stuff, because you're going to use a remote event for different things. Like I said, for combat, you're going to use it for more than one thing. You're not just going to have you're not going to have 100 remote events, because that would just be stupid. You want to set them for each category. Like have one remote event for combat, have one for I don't know, data loading. That would be probably like a core event, maybe something for UI and stuff. Yeah. So yeah, we would say this. Let's utilize what we learned in if statement. So if event type is equal to in quotation marks, right? We're going to put combat, enter, then we're going to say print arg1, right? We could also assign it a value, create a variable inside of the function, right? Let's say local combat type is equal to arg1. And instead of referring arg1, we said combat type. This is what you should be doing. This is better, so that when you're reading your code, you know what it is, because this is very bleak. Like obviously we know what it is because we only have one, but if you have if you're using this remote event for 6 different things, like if you're calling this event for 6 different things, then you probably would forget which specifically it's used for. So this is why it's for the best to use combat type, or sorry, not combat type. You give it a name, but in this instance we're going to call it combat type, right? So we would print that. And then I'm trying to think, because there was something, I feel like there was something else I want to show y'all, but yeah. So if I print this, if I click play, you guys will see it'll print M1. It printed the specific combat type, right? So if event type is equal to combat, then this will happen. It'll print that this function, it'll only run since I didn't put it inside of a function. Now I want to explain real quick scopes of things, right? I'm going to explain the scopes of things, right? So you guys see how if I go down, I can do I can reference the value, right? The variable, I should say, right? I can reference the variable's value, right? So I can reference it here inside of the because it's inside the scope, so inside this if statement, but I cannot access it outside of the scope. So you guys see how if I click this arrow, you notice how it disappears because it's inside of this if statement. If I try to go outside of it and I do this, I won't be able to access it because it doesn't exist. It's not a global variable. This is a not a global variable, it's a local. Now I know, even though for all variables we put the word local, but this is a actual local variable, a localized variable. This is a global variable because we can call this at any point on the script, right? So yeah, I feel like that's enough talking about, I went over functions, did another overview over functions, showed some things you can do with that, give a deep explanation on remote event. So I think that's that. Let me check something. Okay, good to go. Oh wow, we are at an hour. That is crazy. Did not think this video was gonna be that long. Well, I hope you guys have been enjoying. Okay, moving on. We have tables, right? A table is a data structure that stores information in the form of key value pairs, right? So tables, once again, it's another intermediate thing, right? I'm gonna go ahead and clear the scripts. Another intermediate thing, people ask a lot about it. I actually have a video on that explains tables. If you want to learn how to use tables, go watch that video. I have a video on it. But it's a brief little overview. Okay, you create a table by doing this. We're going to create a variable, initialize a variable. So let's say local table is equal to then special brackets. I don't know where this is on your keyboard, but yeah, special brackets. This isn't like regular brackets. This is special brackets, right? You can do this one of two ways. This is a table right here. We've created a table, or you can also do this, enter, right? But this is more so if you know what you're doing. This is probably easier for most people. So we create a table by doing this. A table it pretty much holds a whole bunch of different values. So while cool, we'll put strings 12, 5, comma, false, true, right? As you guys can see, it has strings, numbers, booleans. Now, if I print the table, I'm honestly curious to know if you think that how it's going to print this. Do you think it's just going to print this like this, or is it going to, print it differently? Now, if your answer was differently, then it is. Here's how tables will look. It's not all one thing. It's all its own individual values. The first thing is wow. Second thing, you guys see how it's in order of, how you placed it. That's a table. That's how you create a table. Tables are, yeah, they're pretty useful. Stuff for, arrays, data saving, stuff like that. But yeah, you won't really need this to your intermediate level, so don't really worry about that. Like I said, I have a video on tables. There was just some topics that people asked me to cover that are just like, I'll briefly go over it, but I didn't want to spend too much time because it's not really, a basic thing. But yeah, so moving on, I then have the tween service. Now again, this is another thing, or tweening I should say. This is another thing that's, I mean, it's pretty beginner, but at the same time, it's kind of intermediate. But again, people ask me to go over it, so. A tween is a type of animation that smoothly transitions the property of an object from one value to another over a specified duration. Pretty much just means it's a way to animate like certain instances, right? I'm not referring to animations on a player. I'm referring to like if I wanted to move this spawn position smoothly from there to over here. Like if I wanted to, do that, I would create a tween. Now, the way I would do that is I would get the tween service. So let's get the tween service. We're going to create a variable. Let's say local, and then we're going to, name it tween service. Then enter. We retrieve services by doing game get service quotation marks. Then you put the name of the service. So tween service, enter, right? Then let's call on the service. So tween service, enter. Then you're going to put a colon. Then you're going to say, create tween. We're going to create, so create, right? Then it's asking for an instance, right? So this is whatever instance properties you're trying to change. So we're going to put the spawn location, right? We need to reference the spawn location by doing game.workspace. So game, because the spawn is inside of the workspace. So game.workspace, that's spawn location. And we just want to change the position. So we're going to say position, not position. You change the properties later on. You just want the instance right now. Then we're going to put a comma. Then we're going to set the tween info dot new, your time, which is the duration. Let's say we want it to happen in 1 second, or let's do 5 seconds actually. Then a comma, easing style. This is just how it looks when it moves across. So nm.easing style. Choose whatever one. You can read the definitions, watch a video on how they look. I'm just go with linear, comma, then our easing direction, which is pretty self-explanatory. This is how it's going to look. Which direction you want it to go. So out. And then you're going to put a comma between the parentheses. We're going to create a table just like we did before, special brackets. And then you're going to put the properties that you want to change, right? The properties which can be found if you have your property menu open. If you don't, click view properties, right? But yeah, so it would open the spawn location. All of these things are properties, so you can change any of these things. So say if you wanted to change the transparent, let's do transparency actually. Transparency, just make sure you spell it right. So transparency, we want to set it to 1, right? Then enter, and then you would oh, sorry. I actually we need to name the tween. So let's say local tween is equal to boom, right? Then we call on the tween. Next line, tween play, right? And I'd show you guys. So I'll show you guys. We don't have to click play. We just click run. You guys will see how it slowly becomes transparent over time. Right, boom. And then obviously the decal, because the decal is separate. But yeah, that's how you tween it. Like I just wanted to cover it real quick because people asked for it. Not really beginner, but yeah. Then the next thing is troubleshooting and debugging. I do have a video on this, so you guys can go watch that. But yeah, I'll just go over 2 things real quick. Okay, so with troubleshooting and debugging, troubleshooting is easy sometimes, it's hard other times. When you have syntax errors, if you don't know what a syntax error is, this is what I'm talking about. If I were to just type a bunch of mumbo jumbo, you guys see how it's a red line. This is a syntax error. If I were to click run, it's going to give me a nice big red error, incomplete statement, right? It's going to explain to you pretty much what that means, like what the error is. you probably wouldn't understand what it means though in most cases, right? But yeah, that is a syntax error that can be easily fixed because it tells you, what the issue is, and it says what line it's on, what script is on. You just go find it. Now there are certain cases where let's set up an if statement with a variable again. So let's say local var, our variable, is equal to, let's set the value equal to 10, right? Then we're going to say if var is equal to 10, enter, right? Then let's say else if var, or actually no, we just need the if statement. Actually, yeah, we just need that. So instead of 10, let's do 8, right? And then let me put print. So print it works, right? Now if I click run, nothing is going to happen, right? And that's because the value of the variable is not equal to 8, it's equal to 10, right? Now obviously, since in this example we can clearly see that that's the issue, and we could just easily fix this by changing this to 10. But when you have hundreds of lines of code, which if you're making a game you'll have hundreds of lines of code, it's kind of hard to really notice certain issues like this because it doesn't actually give you an error in the output, so you have to debug it, right? So what we could do to fix this, for example, is we could say, okay, our if statement isn't working. I don't know why it's not working, but let me try this. Since I don't know why it's working, let me see what the value is. So then maybe I can figure out the issue. So let me print the variable's value by putting, print var with else, right? And it's going to print the value. Oh, okay. The value is equal to 10, and this if statement is equal to 8. That's the issue. How I fix this is changing this 10 to an 8. That's simple print debugging, right? That's the difference between, basic errors and stuff. If you forgot an equal sign, it's gonna give you syntax error, run, and then you'll see it, and then you can just go there and then go fix it, right? That simple, right? So yeah, so sometimes it'll tell you, sometimes it won't. It's not, I don't want to let people know, it's not like a chance thing. It literally is either it's syntax or it's the syntax is fine. It's just how you made it. It's just the custom aspects to it, if that really makes sense, right? So yeah, that's pretty much debugging. So the next things really were for loops and for I, v, and pair loops. I'm honestly debating because the video is like an hour already. I don't know. I guess I'll just finish it. I might as well just finish it. Or actually no, I'm gonna end the video here because the video is already an hour and stuff. Done a lot of talking and stuff. I really hope the video has been helpful to people. One last thing before I end the video, I just wanted to include resources and stuff if you ever get confused and stuff. Number one thing I highly recommend people to do, if they're trying to learn, use YouTube tutorials. I've heard a lot of people complain about them, but I'm gonna just be honest, that's like not the only way to learn, but to me that's probably the best way to learn if you're truly a beginner, right? So yeah, you can watch certain YouTubers, beginner guys to scripting as you're watching now. Watch their playlist. I recommend the Dev King. If you want to know what I learned from the Dev King. I learned from some of Alvin Blox's tutorial and stuff. Those are some YouTubers you guys can watch. You can use the dev form. If you don't know what that is, search up Roblox dev form. You can search up specific issues. Like if you're wondering, okay, how do I disable the reset character button? Search it up. You can either watch a YouTube video or you can see the dev forum and stuff. You can also look up Roblox's documentation. Once again, just search up Roblox documentation and you will see. It'll give you definitions and explain how you can use this and that. It'll give you examples and stuff. That's why I pulled the definitions for most of the stuff that I talked about today. And I just simplified them, right? Those are some resources and stuff. I'll have links to all that stuff in the description. So if you're confused as to how to find it, you can just look in the description, right? So yeah. If you guys want a part 2 where I talk about for loops, for I v pair loops, while loops, data stores, and just more topics and stuff, leave a like in the video, subscribe, let me know you enjoyed this. Leave a comment, DM me, ping me, whatever. Just let me know you enjoyed the video and I will happily talk my ass off again for another hour. I really hope this video helps people, whoever's, new to scripting and they want to make games and whatnot. I hope this video's been helpful. If it has, let me know. And I appreciate y'all for sticking through the long ass hour of me yapping and stuff. But yeah. Go ahead and end the video here. Thank you all for watching. If you need help, got any questions, leave a comment, join my Discord server, whatever. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you all for watching.